Now, the United States says it's imposing sanctions on 9 Iranians with ties to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. The move comes as Europe urges Iran to recommit to the 2015 nuclear accord following Tehran's announcement of the development of new machines that can speed up uranium enrichment, as Neil O'Reilly reports.
Step by step, Iran is moving away from the nuclear deal it signed with world powers. The reported launch of 30 advanced centrifuges further scales back Tehran's commitments to the accord, in line with earlier warnings from the Iranian leadership. This disengagement triggered by the Trump administration's decision to withdraw from the hard-won pact. Unapologetic, Iran's nuclear chief laid the blame on the White House.
We have to thank our enemies for creating an opportunity for the Islamic Republic of Iran, especially in the nuclear technology industry, to show how we can have such an achievement in making S-8 machines in such a short time.
The announcement was greeted with dismay in Brussels. The EU is still working to salvage the deal it played a central role in drafting.
We've been very consistently expressing our concerns since we believe that the JCPOA should be preserved. It's a matter of our security, not just the region or Europe, but globally. It's an international agreement that was endorsed by the UN, and we believe it should remain in place.
The 2015 agreement saw Iran limit its enrichment of uranium in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. It also created the potential to improve relations in general with the West. But with Tehran and Washington taking an increasingly hard line, that now seems a lost opportunity. Neil O'Reilly, Euronews.
Well, for more on what's at stake, I'm joined now by Richard Johnson, and he's from the Nuclear Threat Initiative, and that's based in Washington, D.C. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the programme this evening. Well, let's just focus briefly, if we can, on this latest breach. Tell us, how much closer is Iran in obtaining the sufficient fissile material now that could allow it to create or make a nuclear bomb?
Well, the good news is Iran is still probably at least several months away from having enough nuclear material for a weapon. In fact, it's probably more on the year as opposed to several weeks, which is how it was at the beginning before there was a JCPOA. The bad news is that every time Iran makes one of these announcements, it's nibbling away at that deal and getting closer and closer to having enough material for a nuclear bomb.
So as you say, it's nibbling away at that deal. So how, this deal is crumbling before our eyes, but how long before it ceases to exist and the EU can't bring it back into the fold?
The Europeans are in a very difficult spot. They certainly want to maintain the JCPOA, but unfortunately, because of U.S. sanctions, they are unable to really provide the sanctions relief to Iran that they are seeking. So as of now, about the best that they can do is sort of muddle through. I think the one bright spot here is that the Iranians are allowing the IAEA to continue to do its inspection work. So at least we know what they are up to. And the Iranian measures that they have taken have been very calibrated and deliberate, so that if a future administration in the United States decides it wants to return to the nuclear deal, most of these measures could probably be reversed rather quickly. The one concern I do have is that Iran is learning a lot more by testing these advanced centrifuges that your reporter spoke about. Ironically enough, it was the Trump administration who said they were concerned that in 5 to 7 years, Iran would take these R&D steps. Now they're taking them as of today.
Okay, well, you just mentioned the Trump administration there. Well, there's been a new tranche of sanctions announced. Do you think they will in any way bring Iran back to the negotiating table?
No, I don't think so. I think this maximum pressure campaign is a lot of noise and a lot of difficult times for the Iranian people. But in reality, the only thing that's going to bring Iran back to the table is some idea that there can be some trust rebuilt between the United States and Iran. The only way we were able to get a nuclear deal was through diplomacy. And I think that if you want to try to get a better deal, the Trump administration will have to demonstrate that it's willing to give something in return for getting Iran back into compliance. This is what President Macron has been trying to do with his concept for some sort of a credit system. But right now, it's very unlikely that this is going to take place, and not least of which because from the Iranians' perspective, they feel that they had a deal that was working, and now that the U.S. has left it, they don't see why they should trust the Trump administration to uphold any future deal.
Okay, so trust eroded there. Well, Richard Johnson from the Nuclear Threat Initiative, thanks so much for joining us on the programme.